I spent nearly $400,000 trying to prove I still mattered, and all I got was the silence of a house too big for one man. I am 74 years old. I spent 40 years as a structural engineer, calculating the strength of foundations and the integrity of steel, but I completely missed the cracks in my own life. I am speaking to you now from a 2-bedroom condo I call my reality bunker, because I had to lose everything to finally see the truth. You are being lied to. You are being told that your value after 60 is measured by the shine of your car or the size of your lawn. That lie is a prison sentence, and I am here to hand you the keys to escape before the door locks forever. 2 years ago, on Thanksgiving, I sat at the head of a mahogany table set for 12 people. I had just bought a monumental lakefront lodge with 5 master suites and a heated pool because I believed it would force my children to spend every holiday with me. I thought luxury was a magnet for love. My son Mark is 45 years old, and he is a workaholic corporate vice president who treats me like a financial liability to be managed. My daughter Sarah is 41, and she only appeared when I offered the use of my luxury properties. That night, the house was silent, except for the mechanical whine of the pool heater motor right before it burned out and died. I looked at the keys to a luxury European SUV sitting on that expensive wood and realized I no longer had the stamina for long drives. There was no one to sit in the passenger seat next to me. I was a man surrounded by high-value assets, but I was completely invisible. I had tried to trade my remaining life for objects of metal and stone, and I was left with nothing but the echo of my own heartbeat in a house that felt like a museum of my mistakes. I stepped into my 60s with a chest full of pride and a bank account that I thought made me bulletproof. After 40 years of calculating the integrity of steel, I convinced myself that my own life needed a massive upgrade to stay relevant. I walked away from my engineering career and immediately started building a monument to my own ego because I was terrified of being invisible. I fell for the greatest lie our society tells us, that your value is tied to what you can show for it. I bought a 30-foot cabin cruiser that I only ever took out twice because the mechanical complexity overwhelmed me, and my son Mark was always too busy with his corporate meetings to join me. I sat on that deck alone, feeling the salt air on my face, and wondering why I felt so empty while owning so much. Then came the luxury SUV, a beautiful European machine that roared like a beast, but eventually became a white elephant in my driveway. I was so scared of the out-of-warranty repair costs that I barely drove it. I was a structural engineer living in a house of cards. I spent 60% of my retirement income just to keep the grass perfectly manicured and the pool heater running at a lakefront lodge that had 5 master suites for people who never called unless they wanted a free vacation. I was living on autopilot, chasing a ghost of authority that I thought I could buy at a dealership. I was skipping my own supplemental health insurance and avoiding the travel I always dreamed of just to maintain the estate. I was a slave to contractors and landscapers, while my children, Sarah and Mark, started looking at me like a financial liability to be managed. I was so busy polishing the surface of my life that I didn't notice the foundation was rotting away under the weight of my own greed for status. Before I explain the 3 specific money traps that will turn your golden years into a prison, I want to ask you a genuine question because I need to know if I am alone in this struggle. Does your own home ever feel like a heavy weight around your neck instead of a place of rest? Where are you watching this from? And have you ever felt like you were buying things just to convince your family that you still matter? Please talk to me in the comments, because sometimes this condo feels like a bunker, and I just need to hear from someone else who understands that we are more than the things we own. It happened 2 years ago on a Thursday night that should have been full of laughter, but instead tasted like cold grease and salt. I was sitting at the head of a mahogany table, polished so bright I could see my own tired reflection in the wood. I had set 12 places, 12 crystal glasses, 12 heavy silver forks. I had spent 3 days preparing a feast for a family that never showed up. The lakefront lodge was a cathedral of my own making, with 5 master suites and a heated pool that was supposed to be a magnet for my grandchildren. But the house was a tomb. The only sound in that $3 million structure was the mechanical whine of the pool heater motor outside. It was straining against the November chill, and then, with a pathetic metallic cough, it just stopped. In that sudden, absolute silence, I felt a strange flutter in my chest, like a trapped bird beating its wings against my ribs. My heart skipped a beat, then two. Then it started racing like a frantic engine. I reached for my phone, but my hand would not stop shaking. I looked at the keys to that European SUV sitting on the table and realized I could not even drive myself to the emergency room. I called my son Mark. He did not pick up. I left a voicemail, and I could hear the desperation in my own voice. 10 minutes later, he texted me, saying he was in a strategy meeting and asked if I could just call the insurance agent about the house. He did not ask if I was okay. He did not ask if I was alone. To him, I was not a father in pain. I was just a property manager for his future inheritance. I sat there in the dark, with my heart failing me, and realized that every cent I had poured into that lodge was a brick in the wall I had built between myself and the people I loved. I was 72 years old, clutching a silver spoon and realizing that if I died right then, the only thing my children would mourn was the time it would take to liquidate the estate. The room started to spin, and as the lights of the lodge flickered, I knew that if I survived the night, I would have to burn my entire life to the ground just to see the truth through the smoke. I woke up the morning after that heart scare, and instead of selling the lodge, I called a contractor to renovate the kitchen. I told myself that the reason Mark and Sarah didn't stay was because the house wasn't modern enough. I was a structural engineer who refused to admit the ground beneath me had already shifted. I spent another $50,000 on Italian marble and smart home systems that I couldn't even operate without a manual. I was doubling down on a losing hand because my pride was the only thing I had left to keep me warm. I bought that 30-foot cabin cruiser, thinking it would be the ultimate bait for a family weekend. I spent hours cleaning the hull and checking the oil, waiting for a phone call that only came when Sarah wanted to borrow the lodge for a weekend with her friends. She didn't want me there. She wanted the backdrop of my success without the burden of my presence. I sat in my luxury SUV in the driveway of a house that felt like a fortress of glass and stone, and I realized I was just a ghost haunting my own retirement. I was skipping my doctor appointments and choosing the cheapest supplemental insurance because I needed every cent to pay the landscapers and the pool boy. I was starving my own health to feed a house that was eating me alive. I thought I was building a legacy, but I was actually building a wall of debt that my children were already planning to tear down the moment I stopped breathing. I was still using the old math of my career, trying to solve a soul problem with a checkbook, and every time the total came to zero. I was terrified that if I let go of the things I owned, I would simply disappear into the gray fog of old age. I didn't realize that the more I held on to, the heavier the chains became, until I was practically buried under the weight of my own vanity. I was waiting for a thank you that was never going to come, while my children stood in my living room looking at the crown molding and calculating the resale value right in front of my face. The realization hit me like a physical blow when I overheard Mark in the hallway whispering into his phone about how much longer the estate would remain solvent. He wasn't worried about my heart. He was worried about his inheritance. That was the moment I realized I wasn't the master of my domain. I was just the security guard for their future assets, and the price of my admission was my very life. I am sitting here in this small condo, and the silence is different now. It is a choice rather than a sentence, but it can still get heavy. Before I pull back the curtain on the 3 specific money traps that will strip you of your dignity and your time, I need to ask you something that has been weighing on me. Do you ever feel like you are the only one left who remembers what it is like to have a real, honest conversation? I am truly curious where you are sitting right now as you hear my voice. What city are you in? And are you also feeling that heavy quiet in your own home today? Please talk to me in the comments below and share your own experience or the pain you are carrying. If you could like this video, it lets me know that I am not alone in this. I read every single word you write because sometimes this place feels like a bunker, and I just need to know that there are others out there who are tired of being treated like a bank account instead of a human being. It would mean a lot to me to hear from you because I am starting to think that we are the only ones left who still understand the value of a connection that cannot be bought. I sat in that $3 million silence for 3 days after I heard Mark in the hallway. The words estate solvency kept looping in my brain like a structural defect I could not unsee. I looked at the Italian marble countertops and the smart home panels that glowed like cold blue eyes in the dark, and I realized I was not the owner of this house. I was just the unpaid night watchman guarding my children's future bank account. Every hour I spent worrying about the lawn or the pool was an hour I was stealing from the man I used to be. I was 74 years old, and I had spent my entire retirement trying to build a cage beautiful enough that my children would want to live in it with me. But people do not love cages, no matter how much gold you plate them with. I looked at my hands, and they were still shaking, not from the heart arrhythmia, but from a sudden and violent clarity. I had spent 40 years calculating the load-bearing capacity of concrete and steel, but I had completely failed to calculate the weight of my own vanity. I was drowning in a sea of equity, while my soul was parched for a single minute of genuine connection. I realized that if I stayed in that lodge, I would die in one of those 5 master suites, and the only person who would cry would be the real estate agent losing a commission. That was the moment I stopped being afraid of being invisible. I stood up in that dark kitchen, and I felt the foundation of my entire identity crack and crumble. I did not need a renovation. I needed an extraction. I decided right then that I would rather live in a shoebox with a clear conscience than in a palace built on the hope that my children would eventually love me for my assets. I was going to burn the illusion to the ground before it buried me alive. But the hardest part was not deciding to leave. The hardest part was realizing that the 3 specific things I had bought to secure my future were actually the 3 things that were guaranteed to destroy it, and I am about to tell you exactly what they are before you make the same fatal mistake I did. I spent 40 years calculating the load-bearing capacity of steel and concrete, but I never calculated the weight of a house that does not want you in it. The first thing you need to understand is that high-maintenance assets are not investments, they are anchors. If you are over 60, do not buy anything that requires a small army of contractors to keep functional. I was a slave to the pool boy and the landscaper and the man who fixed the smart home systems I could barely understand. Every dollar I spent on a new roof or a faster heater was a dollar I could have spent on a nurse or a flight to see a friend. After 60, your energy is your most precious currency. Do not spend it managing people who only see you as a recurring invoice. If a property requires you to be a full-time manager, you are not retired. You are just an unpaid employee of your own vanity. Then there is the trap of the trophy car. I bought that European SUV because I wanted to feel like I still had a seat at the table of the powerful. But an expensive car is just a fast way to lose money while you are sitting still. It depreciated the second I drove it off the lot, but my own life was depreciating even faster. If the insurance premium makes you wince, or the fear of an out-of-warranty repair keeps you from driving it, then you do not own that machine. That machine owns you. Use your money for comfort and safety, but stop trying to buy respect from people who are only waiting for you to move out of the fast lane. And the most dangerous lie I ever told myself was that I needed a palace to bring my family together. I built those 5 master suites as bait for my children, but I only succeeded in building a hotel where I was the only guest who paid the bill. If they do not come for your heart, they will not come for your mahogany table. Stop building temples for people who do not have time to visit the priest. Keep your money liquid so you can move toward the people who actually want you near them, instead of waiting for them to find a gap in their schedule to visit your monument. I thought I was securing my legacy, but I was actually just funding a future estate sale, and the realization that I had spent my best years guarding a pile of junk nearly broke me. But the worst part is not what I bought, it is what those things cost me in the one currency I can never earn back. And I am about to show you exactly how much of your own life you are currently throwing into the trash. I am looking at my hands right now, and they are shaking because I finally realize that time is the only currency you can never earn back. As a structural engineer, I spent 40 years obsessed with the strength of materials, but I never factored in the expiration date of my own breath. Every single dollar you lock up in a high-maintenance house or a shiny car is an hour of freedom you are throwing into a furnace. You are trading your remaining sunsets for pieces of metal and stone that will be sold at a discount before your body is even cold in the ground. Do not wait for a heart arrhythmia to wake you up in the middle of the night to the sound of your own life leaking away. You do not need more things to prove you are still here. You need the courage to be still and the wisdom to let go of the weights you have been carrying for people who are only waiting for you to finish paying off their inheritance. Stop what you are doing right now and look at the walls around you. If they feel heavy, it is because they are. If your children only call when they want the keys to the lake house, then you are not a father, you are a landlord. Sell the anchor before it drags you to the bottom. Call the person you have been avoiding, or get your finances in order so you can finally breathe without permission from a bank or a contractor. Do not let consumerism inherit what should be your rest, because the silence of a small room with a clear heart is louder than any palace built on the hope of being noticed. My life is almost over, and I am telling you that the view from the end is very clear and very cold. Do not be the person who dies guarding a pile of junk while your soul is starving for 1 minute of truth. The clock is not ticking, it is counting down, and you just used another minute listening to a ghost tell you how to save yourself. Act now, because tomorrow is a luxury that neither of us can afford to assume is coming.